Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you to the Morehead-Cain staff for organizing this event, to the trustees who have traveled to join us, to the Carolina Club for their amazing hospitality, and to all those of you who have come to share a moment with our community. I want to acknowledge those of us in the room who are attending this banquet for the first time, our first-year scholars, sophomore intakes, global fellows, and anyone new to our community. Welcome. You are in for quite a ride. I feel incredibly honored to be standing in front of you all today. As a super senior who took 2 gap years and whose graduation has been a long-time prophecy, I'm finally approaching the once mythical end of college. As I look around this room and see many of you who are earlier on in your journey, I reflect on all the ways I grew from the wisdom of Morehead-Cain scholars who came before me. And I hope that I'm able to pay a fraction of it forward by telling you all a story. This particular story begins 8,000 miles away in Kathmandu, the capital city of Nepal. It had been a week of me politely arguing with the woman at my bank, trying to convince her that this was not a scam. I pulled out 2 sheets of paper from my backpack to say, "This is an email from a man named G. Montez Thomas and Steve Mihalek, who are both from this place in the US called Chapel Hill, and this proves that all of this is real, so can you please now release the money that they sent me for my gap year?" And somehow it worked. The $7,500 gap year stipend was posted to my bank account. And then something odd happened. I felt something change within me. All of a sudden, I became a lot more audacious. To give you all context, I had been working a full-time summer job that paid me $90 for an entire month of work. At the time in Nepal, the average income was a little under $1,400 US a year. So when I finally received my stipend, I felt like an entire world of possibilities had just opened up for me. So the first thing I did was walk 30 minutes to an electronics store to buy my first mirrorless camera. You see, at the time, I knew that I really cared about the environment. I also knew that I wanted to learn more about impact-driven storytelling. So you take the two, force them together, and you arrive at environmental documentary filmmaking. After some careful consideration, by which I mean a few hours of daydreaming, I decided that this was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. You know, one could say when making a blind leap into something so unfamiliar with a steep learning curve, that it would be wise to start in a place where you're comfortable. Start small, someplace easy. I started on Mount Everest. I had these lofty goals of documenting climate injustice in the world's highest mountains that are warming 3 times faster than the global average. For so long, I had been horrified seeing the loss of life caused by glacial lake outburst floods, and I had never had the ability to do anything about it. But with this new grant supporting me, I felt unstoppable. I started planning my trip, connecting with nonprofits, announcing projects, making promises I thought I could keep. And it wasn't until 12 days into the hike, after taking the world's most dangerous flight and traversing some of the most treacherous landscapes on the planet, that I found myself standing on a snowy ridge at 18,000 feet with frozen mucus all over my face, barely able to open my eyes in the howling wind, holding up the 1 camera battery I had bought that had died from the cold, that I stopped myself to ask, what on earth am I doing? The young, childlike enthusiasm that I carried everywhere with me kept me going, at least for the time being. When I began my freshman year at UNC, that excitement traveled with me. I had realized early on that the true value of my time in college was going to be found through the people I meet and the conversations I have. I knew that sometimes all it takes is one thought, one idea, one conversation to alter your path and change your life. So I challenged myself to meet 1 new person every day for the first 30 days of class and connect with them through an intentional conversation over a meal. I still remember each one of those conversations. I met with Eugenia Chow, class of 24, in Spicy 9, who taught me that often the most successful forms of conservation come not from new technology, but from grassroots indigenous models of coexistence, a concept that led me to many of the projects that I work on today. I met with Aayas Holder, class of 23, in Cosmic Cantina's old location, who told me about the cross-country cycling trip he had done to raise awareness on fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. During that conversation, Aayas had effortlessly uttered this phrase that I have since used to ground myself in times of difficulty. He had said, "To live fully is to sometimes live in pain." With each conversation, I was absorbing advice, planting seeds, collecting insights as I slowly settled into life here. On the advice of Ira Wilder, class of 24, I joined the Daily Tar Heel photo desk and picked up basically every available assignment. I began barging into Professor Pat Davison's office unannounced and engaging in hour-long conversations about all the enriching experiences he had documenting the world with his camera. Every day, I was brimming with inspiration, dreaming about the life that I would be able to build. Everything was going great. And then the dominoes began to fall. On my birthday in freshman year, I was walking back to my dorm from Franklin when I found out that my debit card had been stolen and all the money in my bank account had suddenly disappeared. My savings and my scholarship stipend that I depended on to support myself in this new country where I didn't know anyone were now gone. I suddenly realized just how vulnerable I really was. I had been so relentlessly optimistic that it was naive. The audacious hope in me faltered. I needed to do a better job of protecting myself. At the same time, I began hearing from one alum after another that the documentary industry was in a terrible state, story after story of how people were struggling to make ends meet. To make matters worse, I learned that as an international student, it would be close to impossible for me to get a job and a work visa in this field. I'd gone from being completely enamored by this idea to now realizing that what I had been dreaming of might not even be possible in the first place. Then, one evening in the spring of my freshman year, I got an urgent text from my dad asking to call. My grandmom had just passed away. Ma had a big hand in raising me. When my parents went to work, they would drop me off with her, and she would take me on walks to Hindu temples and teach me about the world. Ma was raised in the outskirts of Kathmandu Valley by step-parents that didn't allow her to go to school, so she was never formally taught to read and write, a fact she was very self-conscious about. Once I grew older, I began to read out stories to her. I would show her pictures from my travels. I would Google things she was curious about. As a toddler, Ma had introduced me to the world, and in return, I was bringing the world to her. The day I left Nepal, I went to see Ma to say goodbye. The last words she said to me were, "Don't forget to call." Our communication became sparse once I got to the US. Ma had learned how to open Facebook Messenger on her phone, and she recognized my profile picture. Since she wasn't able to text, I would wake up some mornings to see that she had sent me, maybe by accident, the bright blue Facebook thumbs up button. Because of time zones, by the time I saw it, she would already be asleep, so I would send her some pictures and leave a voice note. But this is the part that bothers me most. In the months after I came to the US, I genuinely can't recall if I ever called her. And it was the only thing she had asked me to do. In that moment, I realized that I had become so obsessed with chasing this impossible dream that was so far away from everything I knew and loved that I lost sight of the things that were truly important to me. I lost myself. The reality set in. This was the cost of that blind ambition, of that naive hope and childish enthusiasm. What was I doing? Why was I here? Would this ever be everything I lost? All to chase an unrealistic dream? My rose-tinted glasses fell off. It was time to grow up. I spent the entirety of the next year feeling lost. I took a break from the documentary program. I tried to change my major. I considered stopping out and taking a break from school. I was meandering, looking for answers anywhere I could find them. What I know today that I didn't realize then is that as scary as it is to feel lost, it is part of the process. College is a fantastic place to test your beliefs, to question your path, to challenge them, because the beautiful thing is you will come out on the other side either with conviction or with clarity, and both of those are wins. I thought of a phrase that Ma used to say. It's a common saying in Nepali that goes, "Dukha mana atinu, sukha mana matinu," which translates roughly to, in times of difficulty, don't panic, but in times of prosperity, don't lose yourself. I decided to give visual storytelling one last chance. Through my 30 conversations in freshman year, I had met Anna Connors, class of 24, who was also interested in visual work, so we applied for a documentary grant through the Hussman School of Journalism. We decided that we wanted to work on a film about how the colonial legacy of the United States persists in wildlife management practices in the Yellowstone region. But the problem was that neither Anna nor I had ever completed a film before. We didn't know what we were doing, and this would be a huge undertaking. We weren't ready. Something I've learned through my years at UNC is that the best time to start is before you feel ready. If you know you want something, don't wait around for the right time, because the truth is that may never come. You may never feel ready, and that's okay. Sometimes you just have to give yourself the permission to fail and take that leap of faith. And ironically, I found that the best antidote to that fear of not feeling ready is the same childlike naivety that I had tried to stifle. Before we knew it, we were packing an entire living room full of borrowed camera gear into the back of Anna's dad's Mazda 3, and we were off on a crazy month-long road trip. On the first night that we got to Yellowstone, we were welcomed by a rare geomagnetic storm. I stayed up until 3 a.m. watching the northern lights above us, splintering into colorful patterns of pink and green, waving and dancing and shooting across the night sky, lighting up the face of this clueless college student that didn't know what he was doing but did so anyway. In Yellowstone, Anna and I learned about the historical injustice faced by American buffalo and the native tribes that had a relationship with them. We learned about the Buffalo Field Campaign, a nonprofit fighting to protect the bison that migrate out of the national park. We joined volunteers on patrols and filmed some of the most breathtaking nature: grizzly bears, wolves, elk, sometimes coexisting in the same frame. Throughout the process, I was learning. I was out there in the real world, in nature, meeting inspiring people, and with an opportunity to uplift a cause we believed in. Since we both had low expectations, it came as a surprise when film festivals across the world started recognizing our work. We were invited to international wildlife conservation events. Our film was chosen to be screened during COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, and we started winning awards. Earlier this year, Anna and I were recognized by the White House News Photographers Association as joint winners of the Student Videographer of the Year award. We were invited to the award ceremony in Washington, D.C., where we would have a chance of meeting the president. I remember sitting at my table at the gala. On my left, I could see Evan Vucci, the photographer who took that viral image of Donald Trump raising his fist right after being shot. On my right, I could see Weijia Jiang, the White House senior correspondent for CBS. I was in a room with some of the most respected people in my field, and they were all going to listen to me speak when Anna and I received our award. It was really embarrassing at the time, but sitting in that room, tears started streaming down my face. I couldn't stop myself from crying. Although he ultimately didn't attend the event, I thought about how I might be the first student from my background in Nepal to be given the opportunity to address the President of the United States. I thought about how these privileged spaces are so separate from my upbringing in Nepal and how much my life had changed only in a few years. I reflected on struggles my family faced growing up that most of my friends here have never even had to think about. I thought about my childhood self, who would have never believed that he could one day grow up to experience these opportunities because they were so far outside what he knew as the realm of possibility. We often conflate what we cannot imagine with what isn't possible. Just because you can't see it today doesn't mean it may never happen for you. And if these things can happen for me, they can happen for a lot of other students. I hope that my experiences can help others similarly growing up thousands of miles away to realize just how much can be made possible for them. Don't get me wrong though, things aren't all smooth sailing for me either. You can ask Stacy from LSDS, who had to make 3 different emergency WhatsApp group chats for me in 1 month. Sorry again to both the Julies. I still face the same uncertainties and challenges thinking about my career. I still don't have a clear picture of what my life will look like after graduation. And in a lot of ways, I still don't know what on earth I'm doing. But if there's one thing I've learned, it is okay to forge a path where you don't already see one. I might never be able to resolve some of these challenges that come with my craft, but I've decided that it is still worth doing because the wealth I gain is in the moments of human connection, in being invested in uplifting people's stories, in seeing the world, and in entertaining the childlike wonder within me. I want to leave you all with one thought tonight. This is a room full of dreamers. We come into college with these big ideas and lofty goals, but with time, life gets in the way, and we learn to tune those dreams out. Responsibilities and adulthood are not kind to the child within us that is ambitious and naive and stupid and enthusiastic. But as you make your way through college, I urge you all to keep that voice within you alive. Maybe don't let it take the wheel, but let it hold your compass. Because today I realize what changed within me 5 years ago in that bank office was that my entire life I had planned around scarcity, with safety and stability in mind, always asking myself, what if everything went wrong? And for the first time, I was given the permission to ask, what if everything went right? What would I do then? And the answer has changed my life. As you all weigh options and plan for your respective futures, I hope you are able to carry the same question with you. What would you do if you knew everything was going to work out? Thank you so much.